Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Hi, everyone.
Today we're going to be talking about infertility, tackling the emotional and mental challenges.
Yeah.
We've got articles on mindfulness techniques, some on celebrity IVF journeys,
Right?
and some exploring just the whole emotional landscape. So,
It's going to be a good one.
yeah, this deep dive is really all about just giving you usable knowledge and insight, whether you're personally facing infertility or just want to get a better understanding.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such an important topic because, like you said, so many people experience this.
Yeah.
And, it's often kept quiet, which leads to feelings of isolation and shame. So I think bringing these experiences to light can be so valuable for those who are struggling.
Absolutely, yeah. And the sources definitely don't sugarcoat it.
No, they don't.
They paint a very raw picture of what people go through.
Yeah.
I mean, Gabrielle Union, for example, she describes her body as a prisoner of trying to get pregnant.
Wow.
That's heavy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, and it really speaks to that feeling of losing control that many people experience during infertility,
Right.
and navigating the emotional landscape.
Hmm.
That article echoes that sentiment. It describes a whole whirlwind of emotions, grief, anger, anxiety, even depression.
Yeah.
It's so crucial to remember that these feelings are completely normal.
Yeah.
You're not alone if you're feeling this way.
You're not alone. And it's not just the medical side of it, right?
Right.
There's societal pressures, too.
Absolutely. Yeah,
But
societal expectations, especially those around motherhood, can really make people dealing with infertility feel inadequate.
uh-huh.
And then add social media into the mix. With its often perfect portrayals of family life, it's a lot to handle.
Oh, yeah. And then sometimes that pressure comes from people closest to us.
Oh, it's the worst.
Navigating the emotional landscape
Yeah.
even mentions those well-meaning but hurtful comments from
Yeah.
friends and family.
I know.
Like setting boundaries is so important in those situations.
Totally.
You have the right to protect yourself emotionally.
Oh, 100%. And while you know these challenges are significant, there are ways to cope and build resilience.
Okay, so that's where mindfulness comes in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I was so intrigued by these 5 practical techniques from the Tripod Fertility article.
Oh, yeah, those are good.
Daily meditations, deep breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, mindful walking, and journaling.
It's a lot.
Which one do you think would resonate most with someone who's dealing with the constant waiting and uncertainty of fertility treatments?
So that's a great question. I think while all of them can be beneficial, I think deep breathing exercises might be particularly helpful for managing those moments of heightened anxiety.
Yeah.
Like imagine you're waiting for test results or heading into another doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
Those can be incredibly stressful situations.
For sure.
Deep breathing offers a way to kind of ground yourself, to bring yourself back to the present moment and calm your nervous system.
That makes a lot of sense. Like having a tool you can use anywhere, anytime to regain a sense of control.
Exactly. It's about equipping yourself with strategies to navigate those difficult moments.
So it's all about prioritizing self-care
Self-care is huge.
throughout this whole process.
Absolutely. And speaking of self-care,
Right.
even those who seemingly have it all face these struggles.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about celebrities who have opened up about their IVF journeys.
Yeah, I mean, those stories from celebrities talk about IVF really highlight that infertility can impact anyone.
It's true.
You know, Kourtney Kardashian, for example, spoke about how IVF medication triggered menopause and depression for her.
Wow.
I mean, that's not something you'd necessarily expect from someone in her position.
Yeah.
Do you think these celebrity stories, while well-intentioned, could actually contribute to pressure or unrealistic expectations for others?
That's a good point. It's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, these stories can be incredibly validating for people who are struggling. Seeing someone famous and successful going through the same challenges can help to kind of break down the stigma and make people feel less alone. But on the other hand, there's always a risk that people will compare their own journeys to these highly publicized narratives and feel like they're falling short.
It's like anything on social media.
Yeah, exactly.
There's that curated, perfect image that can be hard to live up to.
Exactly. And remember, everyone's journey is unique.
Yeah.
Just because one person has a certain experience doesn't mean everyone will.
Right. And there are so many stories in that article.
I know, it's crazy.
And they're all so raw and honest.
Yes.
Chrissy Teigen has been really open about the emotional toll of multiple IVF rounds.
Yeah.
And Amy Schumer chose to focus on family through other means after IVF and a hysterectomy.
Right.
I mean, it really drives home the variety of experiences and choices people make on this journey.
Absolutely. There's no one right way to feel or to respond. What matters most is finding what works for you, what aligns with your values and goals.
And that actually leads to an important question. If conception isn't happening, what are the options?
Well, navigating the emotional landscape dives into alternative paths to parenthood. Foster parenting and adoption, for example, are highlighted as incredibly fulfilling ways to build a family.
Wow.
It might not be the path you initially envisioned, but it can be just as meaningful and rewarding.
It's about expanding our definition of family, right?
Yeah.
Hearing about these alternative paths is genuinely inspiring. I mean,
Right.
it must be such a relief for people who feel stuck or limited in their options to
Absolutely.
know that there are other ways to create a family.
For sure, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Okay.
And the article also touches on surrogacy, which is
Yeah.
becoming an increasingly common choice. And there are different types of surrogacy, each with its own emotional and legal considerations.
Could you explain the different types of surrogacy? I think it would be helpful to understand the nuances.
Yeah, of course. So in traditional surrogacy, the surrogate is both the egg donor and the carrier of the pregnancy, meaning she's genetically related to the child.
Okay.
However, in gestational surrogacy, the surrogate carries a pregnancy created with an egg from another woman, often the intended mother or a donor.
Mm-hmm.
This means the surrogate is not genetically related to the child.
So in gestational surrogacy, the surrogate is more like a gestational carrier.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
And in both cases, there are a lot of legal and ethical considerations that need to be carefully addressed before moving forward.
Right.
It's crucial for everyone involved to have a clear understanding of their rights and responsibilities.
Absolutely. So with all these different paths to parenthood, feeling empowered to make choices,
Mm-hmm.
is it ever okay to change your mind along the way?
Mm-hmm.
What if what you want or need shifts as you go through this journey?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's completely okay to change your mind.
Okay.
Flexibility and self-compassion are key in this process. What you want or need might evolve over time, and that's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
It's important to be honest with yourself and your partner about what you're feeling
Yeah.
and adjust your plans accordingly.
Right.
Remember, there's no right or wrong answer, and there's no set timeline.
That's reassuring to hear. It's your journey,
It is.
and you get to define what it looks like.
Yes, you do.
But with all these big decisions and emotional complexities, professional support sounds like it could be crucial, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of the articles we read from the Nevada Fertility Institute stressed that seeking professional help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Right.
Therapy, both individual and couples counseling, can be invaluable for processing emotions and developing coping mechanisms.
I can see how a therapist could provide that safe space to unpack all the complicated feelings that come with infertility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And couples counseling can be especially helpful for navigating the strain that this journey can put on a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a way to strengthen your communication, work through challenges together.
And ensure that you're both on the same page.
That actually reminds me of something from the Nevada Fertility Institute article that really resonated with me.
Oh, yeah.
They emphasize the importance of maintaining your relationship with your partner throughout this process.
For sure.
It's easy to get so caught up in the medical side of things that you forget to nurture that connection.
It's true. Infertility can be incredibly stressful,
Yeah.
and that stress can definitely spill over into your relationship.
Right.
But remember, you're in this together.
So how can couples maintain that connection amidst all the stress and uncertainty?
Well, communication is key.
Okay.
Make time for each other, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Right.
Talk about how you're feeling, both the good and the bad.
Uh-huh.
Be honest and vulnerable with each other.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to seek couples counseling if you need help navigating those conversations.
And it sounds like those small acts of self-care we talked about earlier.
Meditation, deep breathing could also be beneficial for couples, not just individuals.
Absolutely. Yeah. Taking a walk together, cooking a healthy meal together, or just snuggling up on the couch and watching a movie.
Yeah.
Those moments of connection can make a world of difference.
And don't forget about the power of community.
That's huge.
Both articles highlighted the value of support groups,
Yes.
whether they're local or online.
Oh, yeah. Connecting with others who understand what you're going through can be so validating.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that you're not alone.
Right.
And it can be really helpful to hear other people's stories, to see how they've coped and found their own paths to parenthood.
There's something so powerful about shared experiences,
Totally.
about knowing that you're not the only one going through this.
Yeah. And these support groups offer a safe space to share your feelings, ask questions, and get advice from others who have been there.
It sounds like a fantastic resource
It
for
is.
practical information and emotional support.
It is.
But how do you find the right support group? There are so many options out there.
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of options. You can start by asking your doctor for recommendations. They might know of local support groups or online forums that would be a good fit for you.
Right.
You can also do some research online. There are many national organizations dedicated to infertility, and they often have lists of support groups in different
On
areas.
social media can be a great resource too.
Oh, yeah.
There are tons of groups on Facebook and other platforms where people connect and share their experiences with infertility.
For sure. Just be sure to choose groups that feel safe and supportive for you.
Okay.
Not every group is created equal.
Good point. It's important to find a space where you feel comfortable sharing your story and connecting with others.
Definitely.
And speaking of sharing your story,
Yes,
don't underestimate the power of men's voices in this conversation.
it's so true.
While we often focus on the woman's experience, infertility affects both partners,
Both partners.
and men face their own unique challenges.
They do, and that's something we haven't really touched on yet.
Yeah.
But it's a crucial aspect of this whole conversation.
So how can we better support men on this journey?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to create spaces where men feel comfortable opening up.
Okay.
That could be support groups specifically for men,
Okay.
or it could be simply having more open and honest conversations with the men in our lives.
It's about letting them know it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
It's okay to express their feelings and ask for help. I
Exactly.
think that's something we can all work on.
I agree. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we understand about infertility,
Uh-huh.
the better equipped we are to support ourselves and others on this journey.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now let's take a deeper look at those coping strategies.
Okay.
And building resilience, because managing all of this stress can be overwhelming.
It can.
We talked about mindfulness earlier, but what other tools can help navigate these emotional waters?
Well, navigating infertility stress suggests focusing on overall well-being, not just the medical aspects.
Okay.
Exercise, nutrition, and hobbies all play a part.
It's like a holistic approach to self-care, isn't it?
It is.
But what's the connection between, say, exercise
Right.
and coping with infertility stress?
Yeah, so while it might sound simple,
Oh.
exercise can have a huge impact on your mental and emotional state.
Uh-huh.
It releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects.
Okay.
It also helps reduce stress hormones like cortisol.
Oh, wow.
And some studies suggest that regular exercise can actually improve fertility in both men and women.
So it's not just about feeling good.
Right.
It's about potentially improving your chances of conception, too.
Yeah,
That's a win-win.
it is,
And nutrition plays a role as well.
for sure.
Eating a healthy, balanced diet can help regulate your hormones, improve your energy levels, and support your overall well-being.
Exactly.
What about hobbies? How can something like painting or playing music help with infertility stress?
Well, hobbies can provide a much-needed outlet for your emotions.
Okay.
They can distract you from the stress of infertility, give you a sense of accomplishment,
Right.
and help you reconnect with your passions. It's about finding those activities that bring you joy and help you de-stress.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's about finding those pockets of joy amidst the challenges.
exactly.
And speaking of finding joy, the Maintaining Relationships Amidst Struggles section talks about the importance of communication with your partner.
Yeah,
Open and honest dialogue can make a huge difference.
it can.
But how can couples navigate those conversations when emotions are running high?
That's a great question. It's important to create a safe and supportive environment for those conversations.
Okay.
Choose a time when you're both relaxed and can focus on each other.
Right.
Listen actively to what your partner is saying
Uh,
and try to understand their perspective.
right.
And be honest about your own feelings,
Yeah.
even if they're difficult to express.
Yeah. It sounds like it takes a lot of patience and understanding from both sides.
It does. But remember, you're on the same team. You're both going through this together, and you need to support each other.
And finally, knowledge is power, right?
Yes.
One of the articles encouraged people to research their condition and stay informed about new treatments. But with so much information out there,
It's overwhelming.
it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where should people start?
Yeah, you're right. It can be overwhelming.
Right.
But it's important to remember that you don't have to become an expert overnight.
Okay.
Start by talking to your doctor. They can provide you with reliable information about your specific condition and treatment options.
Okay.
You can also check out reputable websites like the American Society for Reproductive Medicine or Resolve. The National Infertility Association.
Okay.
They offer evidence-based information and resources for people dealing with infertility.
And remember, you're not alone in this journey.
Yeah.
There are millions of people around the world who are going through similar challenges.
Absolutely, and there is hope.
Yeah.
No matter where you are on your journey, there are resources available to help you navigate the challenges and find your way to a fulfilling future.
That's so important to hear.
It is.
Infertility doesn't have to define you.
Nope.
You have the strength and resilience to overcome these obstacles and create the life you want.
You do.
We'll be back with more insights in just a bit.
Sounds good. You do. And, it's important to remember that there's no one right way to build a family, whether you ultimately conceive, adopt, foster, or choose another path.
Right.
The most important thing is creating a loving and supportive home for your child. There's beauty in all the different ways families come together.
That's such a good point. It's about focusing on the love and the commitment, not the specific path you take.
Precisely. And speaking of those different paths, we touched on surrogacy earlier. It's fascinating to consider the emotional and legal complexities that come with it. What are some of the key things people need to know if they're considering surrogacy?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. It feels like a whole world unto itself with so many nuances to consider.
It is. First off, it's crucial to remember that surrogacy laws vary significantly from state to state
Okay.
and even country to country. So thorough legal counsel is absolutely essential.
Right.
You need to make sure all parties are protected and that everyone is on the same page from the very beginning.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want to get into a situation where things are ambiguous or open to interpretation. What about the emotional side of things? I imagine there's a lot to navigate there as well.
Definitely. There are the intended parents who are experiencing the hopes and anxieties of building their family through surrogacy. Then there's the surrogate who's going through the physical and emotional experience of pregnancy and childbirth. It's a deeply personal and intimate journey for everyone involved.
It's incredible to think about the level of trust and communication required in those relationships.
You're absolutely right. Open and honest communication is paramount. It's about addressing potential concerns up front, setting clear boundaries, and fostering a supportive and respectful relationship throughout the entire process.
It sounds like it takes a very special kind of person to be a surrogate.
It does. It's an incredibly selfless and generous act, and it's not for everyone. But for those who choose to become surrogates, it can be a deeply fulfilling experience.
So we've talked about the emotional roller coaster of infertility, the power of mindfulness, the insights we can glean from celebrity stories, societal pressures, alternative paths to parenthood, and the importance of professional support. Phew. That's a lot to digest.
It is, but it's all interconnected, isn't it?
Yeah,
Each piece of this puzzle contributes to a greater understanding of the complexities of infertility.
you're so right. It's not just about the medical aspect, it's about the whole person.
Exactly, and it's about understanding that everyone's journey is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
And that's where self-awareness comes in, right?
Absolutely.
Knowing yourself, knowing what you need, and advocating for your own well-being throughout this process.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is essential. It allows you to make choices that align with your values, your goals, and your emotional capacity. And it empowers you to seek the support you need, whether it's from your partner, your family, a therapist, or a support group.
Speaking of support, let's circle back to those community resources we mentioned earlier. You mentioned that finding the right support group is important. How can someone figure out which one is the best fit for them?
That's a great question. It's kind of like finding the right pair of shoes. You might have to try on a few before you find the one that feels just right.
I love that analogy. So it's okay to experiment and explore different options.
It absolutely is. You can start by attending a few meetings of different groups, either online or in person. See which one resonates with you the most. Pay attention to the group dynamics, the tone of the conversations, and how comfortable you feel sharing your own experiences.
It's about finding that sense of belonging, that feeling of being understood.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to commit to any one group right away. You can try out a few and see which one feels like the best fit.
It's about prioritizing your own comfort and finding a space where you feel safe and supported. And speaking of support, you brought up an interesting point earlier about men's experiences with infertility. Why do you think it's so important to bring men into this conversation more prominently?
Well, for one, because infertility affects men just as deeply as it affects women, they might experience a different set of emotions and their ways of coping might differ, but the pain and the sense of loss are very real for them too.
And yet, it often feels like their voices are missing from the conversation.
That's true. And I think there are a few reasons for that. Societal expectations play a role. Men are often taught to be strong and stoic, to suppress their emotions, so they might feel pressure to be the rock for their partner, even if they're struggling internally.
It's like they're expected to be the pillar of strength, even when they're crumbling inside. That must be incredibly difficult.
They can be. And then there's the biological aspect. For many men, their sense of masculinity is tied to their ability to father a child. So when they're facing infertility, it can feel like a threat to their identity, their manhood.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
It makes sense why some men might retreat or shut down emotionally.
It does. And that's why it's so important to create spaces where men feel safe to express their feelings, to be vulnerable, and to seek support.
So what are some practical ways we can encourage more open conversations about male infertility?
Well, first and foremost, we can start by simply acknowledging that men have feelings too.
Yeah.
Let's normalize conversations about the emotional impact of infertility on men. Let's encourage them to talk about their experiences, to share their struggles, and to seek help when they need it.
It's about breaking down those stereotypes and creating a more supportive and understanding environment for everyone involved.
Exactly. And on a practical level, we can support the creation of men-only support groups or online forums where they can connect with other men who are going through similar experiences.
I love that idea. It's about creating those safe spaces where they can feel comfortable being vulnerable and sharing their stories without judgment.
Exactly. And we can also encourage healthcare providers to be more proactive in addressing men's emotional health during infertility treatments. Often, the focus is on the woman's physical health, but it's crucial to remember that both partners are going through an emotional journey.
It's about recognizing the whole person, not just their reproductive system.
Precisely. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about male infertility, the better equipped we are to support the men in our lives.
That's a great point. So let's shift gears for a moment and talk about coping strategies and building resilience. We've touched on mindfulness and exercise, but what are some other tools people can use to navigate the emotional ups and downs of infertility?
Well, one thing that's often overlooked is the power of humor. Laughter is truly medicine, and it can be incredibly helpful for coping with stress and anxiety.
Humor. I wouldn't have thought of that, but it makes sense. Finding moments of levity could be a powerful way to shift your perspective.
It can. It doesn't mean you're making light of the situation. It's simply about finding those moments of joy and connection, even amidst the challenges.
So watching a funny movie, sharing a joke with a friend, or just allowing yourself to laugh at the absurdity of it all can actually be helpful.
It can. Laughter releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects, and it can help you feel more connected to others, which is crucial when you're going through a difficult time.
It's like a reminder that life isn't all doom and gloom, that there's still joy to be found even in the midst of hardship.
Exactly. And speaking of connection, another powerful coping strategy is nurturing your relationships. Lean on your support system. Talk to your friends, your family, your therapist, or a support group. Sharing your burden can make it feel lighter.
It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable and to receive support from others.
It is. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone. There are people who care about you and want to help.
That's such a comforting thought. And speaking of comfort, what about self-care? What role does self-care play in building resilience?
Self-care is crucial. It's about prioritizing your own well-being, both physically and emotionally. It's about taking time for yourself, doing things that bring you joy, and nurturing your body and mind.
So what are some examples of self-care activities that might be helpful for someone going through infertility?
Well, it can be anything that helps you relax, de-stress, and reconnect with yourself. Might be taking a long bath, reading a good book, going for a walk in nature, listening to your favorite music, or spending time with loved ones. It's about finding those activities that nourish your soul and help you recharge.
It's like filling your own cup so you have more to give to others.
Exactly. And self-care isn't selfish. It's essential for your well-being, and it allows you to show up more fully for yourself and the people you care about.
And what about setting boundaries? We touched on this earlier in the context of dealing with insensitive comments from friends and family. But how can setting boundaries contribute to building resilience in a broader sense?
Setting boundaries is about protecting your energy and your emotional well-being. It's about knowing your limits and communicating those limits to others. It might involve saying no to social events that feel draining, limiting your exposure to triggering content online, or simply taking some time for yourself when you need it.
It's about putting yourself first and recognizing that your needs are important.
Precisely. And setting boundaries isn't about being rude or selfish. It's about taking care of yourself so you can show up as your best self.
And speaking of showing up as your best self, one of the articles encouraged people to become their own advocates in their healthcare journey. But what does that actually look like in practice?
It's about being informed, asking questions, and speaking up for yourself. It's about doing your research, understanding your options, and making sure your voice is heard. It's about feeling empowered to make decisions that align with your values and goals.
So it's about taking an active role in your healthcare rather than passively accepting whatever your doctor recommends.
Exactly. It's about being a partner in your own care.
That's such an empowering concept. And I imagine it can be particularly important when you're dealing with something as complex and emotionally charged as infertility.
You're absolutely right. It's about feeling in control of your own journey, even when things feel uncertain.
I love that. It's about reclaiming your power and making choices that feel right for you. And with that in mind, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the emotional roller coaster of infertility, the power of mindfulness, the insights we can glean from celebrity stories, societal pressures, alternative paths to parenthood, the importance of professional support, and a whole range of coping strategies. But if there's one thing I want you, the listener, to take away from this deep dive, it's this. You're not alone.
And there is hope. No matter where you are in your journey, there are resources available to help you navigate the challenges and find your way to a fulfilling future. Remember, you are stronger than you think, and you have the power to create the life you desire.
Those are such powerful words of encouragement. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question. What small act of self-care can you commit to today to support yourself on this journey? It can be something as simple as taking a few deep breaths, going for a walk, or listening to your favorite song. Remember, even small acts of kindness towards yourself can make a big difference.
They can. And remember, your journey is yours to define. Embrace the challenges, celebrate the victories, and never give up on your dreams.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found this deep dive insightful and empowering. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep on learning. You know, it's amazing how much we've talked about with infertility.
I know, right?
We've gone from the emotional side of it to practical coping techniques,
Right.
alternative paths, even the legal stuff with surrogacy.
It's a lot.
It really highlights how complex this whole journey is.
It really does, and how important it is to approach it from, a bunch of different angles.
Absolutely. And speaking of approaching things from different angles,
Okay.
we talked a lot about self-care.
Yeah?
But I'm curious, what are some common misconceptions people have about self-care, especially when it comes to infertility?
Oh, that's a great question. One big one is that self-care has to be expensive
Oh, yeah.
or time-consuming.
Right.
People picture, spa days or exotic vacations,
Yeah.
which can be lovely.
Right.
But self-care can be as simple as taking 5 minutes to meditate
Okay.
or stepping outside for some fresh air.
So it's all about those small intentional moments
Yeah.
that nourish your mind and body.
Yes. Another misconception is that self-care is selfish.
Okay.
Especially women are often conditioned to put others' needs before their own.
Right.
But when you're dealing with infertility, prioritizing your well-being is so essential.
Yeah.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
That's such a good way to put it. It's about recognizing that taking care of yourself allows you to care for others better.
Exactly. And lastly, some people see self-care as a luxury,
Oh, okay.
something they can only afford once everything else is taken care of.
Okay.
But it's actually an investment
Hmm.
in your health and well-being.
Right.
It's like putting on your oxygen mask first
Like,
before helping others.
so it's not about indulging. It's about intentionally taking steps to support your health.
Yes, it's about making yourself a priority,
Not a leftover.
not a leftover. And how does prioritizing self-care actually help?
Oh, in so many ways, it can reduce stress hormones, improve sleep, boost your mood, and increase feelings of empowerment and control.
So it's not just a feel-good tactic.
No.
It has real benefits.
Yeah, it gives you the emotional resilience to get through the ups and downs of this journey.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I keep thinking back to all the stories we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
both from the research and from those celebrities who have opened up about their experiences.
It's true.
And it's just a reminder that there's no one right way to handle infertility. Yeah, everyone's journey is unique, and there's no single path to parenthood or even to healing and acceptance.
And I think that's really important for our listener to hear.
Yeah.
Wherever you are in your journey, whatever choices you make,
Mm-hmm.
your experience is valid,
It is.
and you deserve support.
You do. Speaking of support, we talked about all kinds of resources.
Right?
Any final thoughts on how our listener can find the support they need?
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out, talk to your partner, friends, family, your doctor, a therapist, support groups. Remember, you're not alone in this.
Such good advice. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yes.
The more you understand about infertility, the better you'll be able to advocate for yourself and make those informed decisions.
So true. So to wrap things up,
Okay.
what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners get from this deep dive?
I hope they feel empowered to embrace their journey, however it unfolds for them.
Yeah.
Infertility doesn't have to define you. You are strong enough to navigate these challenges and create the life you desire.
Beautifully said. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for diving deep with us today. It's been an awesome conversation.
It has. And to our listeners out there, remember there's hope, there's support, and you have the power to create a fulfilling life.
We'll catch you next time for another deep dive. Until then, take care.